Hello, my name is Father Tighe, and this is our 11th segment of our journey in faith in the light of the cross, and we thank you for joining us again. On this third day of the eternal revelation, we have the theme, John directs his own disciples to the Lamb of God to become the future leadership of the church. Okay, now we go to our next slide, and we see that John uses the next day. In this case, verse 35 is the third day of the eternal revelation. As John the Baptist saw Jesus pass by on the third day, he said to two of his disciples, "Behold the Lamb of God." Now this time John is saying, follow him, because he is the one I've been giving hope about. I cannot fulfill the hope that I've been preaching about, but I want to send you to him and the rest of the people, because he's the only one that can carry it out. Jesus turned around and said, "What are you seeking?" We keep coming back to, in this, what do you see? What do you seek? When we have education, we learn in our minds historically. But when we're following Jesus, we're following the eternal light of the cross, and it's what we see, and we can't prove to others, and it's an eternal light that keeps unfolding. They said, "Rabbi, where do you stay?" He said, "Come and see," using the word again. They want to walk with Jesus and live with Jesus, and that's the way they see God working. Andrew found his brother Simon and said, "We have found the Messiah." Jesus said to Simon, "You will be called Cephas." We could also say Cephas. Sometimes you see it spelled Cephas. That is the Aramaic word for rock. Peter is the Greek word for rock. Now this is very important. When Jesus sees Peter, he sees him as a future disciple, but the disciple, the leader, and he is going to do the work of a rock. Now the work of a rock is very strange, but we want to go into it because it tells us an awful lot, which is wonderful. We go back to Isaiah in our next slide. And in Isaiah 51, in our previous segment, we went to 52 and 53. Just before that, listen to you who pursue justice. So John the Baptist and Isaiah are talking to people who feel the world is unjust and unfair, but they're longing for God to make things good. Look to the rock from which you were hewn and quarried. He's talking to the Jewish people who all came from Abraham and Sarah, a wondrous birth of Isaac in their old age. And we've been emphasizing that Isaac was not born by blood, by the will of the flesh, nor by the will of man, but by the will of God. Okay, now, so he was born by the will of God, and God gave Abraham and Sarah a baby when her womb was considered, this is the word they used, as a quarry, which means a rock. It's not going to give life anymore. But God can draw life from a rock. It's all over the scriptures. You cannot put limits and boundaries on God like the Mosaic law puts limits and boundaries on people. So God works more wondrously when he does the impossible and draws life. Peter symbolizes in the church what Abraham symbolized in the Old Testament. Look to Abraham and Sarah who gave you birth. When he was but one, I called him. God called Abraham, and now he is calling Peter. I blessed him and made him many, both of them. Now, why are we emphasizing Peter? We're emphasizing Peter because we know he was married, and we know that he didn't have any children. Therefore, he felt cursed by God. This is like John the Baptist's parents. So this theme is all over the place. And Peter now is the symbol. He's going to continuing it. And when he becomes the first Pope of the church, Pope means Papa, he fathers life in the church, and God draws life out of Peter just like he did like from Abraham and Sarah, like pulling life out of a quarry, hewing life out of the quarry. The Lord shall comfort Zion, Zion is the temple, and make her deserts like Eden. Life for so many people seems like a desert. God has abandoned them and rejected them, and they live in shame, but they will become like the Garden of Eden. Joy and gladness shall fill her. All right, now we go on to our next slide. And we see here the next day, this is the fourth day of the eternal revelation. He went to Galilee and found Philip. Now the word found, we just saw Andrew found Peter, and Peter found Jesus. Now we're going to have the word found again. When we are lost, we're at loose ends. But when we're found, means our life is coming together. Philip found Nathanael and said, we have found the prophet of Moses. This was what Moses said, a prophet like me will the Lord send. Nathanael said, can anything good come from Nazareth? You get sarcastic or cynical when you've been hurt. Nathanael is a man who's been longing for God. Now, he says, Philip said, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming and said, here is a true Israelite, there is no deceit in him. This is very important. Jacob, other name was Israel. Jacob lived by deceit and deception. Remember, he got his older brother Esau's birthright by selling him porridge. Then he deceived his father into getting the blessing. This symbolized that until Jesus came, until the Messiah came, all Israel lived in a world of sin and brokenness where you have to compromise and you have to twist the law and you got to play games and go here and go there with deception and deceit to get by. But Nathanael is the perfect disciple for Jesus because he's sick of that. He wants to love truthfully and tell the truth and live the truth and be away with deceit. So we go on to the next slide. Nathanael said, how do you know me? Jesus said, I saw you under the fig tree. Fig tree is a very powerful word all through the scriptures. It symbolizes the place of prayer because each little Israelite did study the scriptures under his own fig tree, which held up the vine in his garden. But it also symbolized for the temple in Israel. Why? Because Isaiah, the same prophet Isaiah said, Israel is God's vineyard, the whole country. And in the vineyard is the place of prayer, is the temple in Jerusalem, and it holds up the vine. Now, Jesus could have seen Nathanael in the temple in Jerusalem, but most likely he saw him in his own yard, in his vineyard, studying by the fig tree. And what was he doing? Praying. He was studying and longing for God to transform the world so we didn't have to live by deception and deceit. Nathanael responded to Jesus. He knew Jesus understood what he was talking about. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. You are the one that understands. I'm sick of living by deceit. Jesus said, do you believe because I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than this. You will see the sky open and the angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man. This happened at the cross, so the light of the cross is unfolding. Jesus tells Nathanael right in the beginning of John's Gospel, you will see wondrous things when the sky is open. When Jesus dies on the cross, the sky is open and heaven and earth are united. Now, what does come back to? Jacob, Israel, when he first got his blessing, he wrestled with an angel at night. And the angel, he won his wrestling, and when the ladder came down from the sky, the angels ascended and descended. Angels and messengers. God speaks to the world through Jacob, Israel, and the world speaks back to God through Jacob, Israel, until Jesus. Jesus now is the eternal Israel, the fulfillment of all. And those who follow him are members of his body. And he is the new stairway to heaven. And so we remember that old wonderful hymn, we are climbing Jacob's ladder. And we hear it now in the background and we're thinking, on this journey of faith, we want to climb. And we want to transcend the darkness. Yes, we're climbing Jacob's ladder. But this time, Jacob is Jesus' ladder. And Jesus, the eternal Israel, is lifting us up. And he's telling us every sacrifice you make, every suffering you bear, every infirmity you share with another person brings you closer to God. And all the deserts in your life become like Eden. And it's full of joy and happiness in fulfilling your journey. So thank you for joining us on this 11th segment in our journey of faith in the light of the cross.